Welcome, everyone, and good evening to this Facebook Live, all our Facebook friends. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Maydad Ronan, and I'm joined tonight with my co host, Nadia Barkos from Chill Technology. Hey, Nadia, how are you?
Hey, I'm very good.
Nice to have you here. How's your day been?
My day has been very good, and we've had some technical difficulties here with our little live. So, we're bringing Dave on as our very special guest, and hopefully, we won't have any more hiccups. So, everyone will be able to see the recording, and yay!
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to do that, and we'll put it up later on for everyone to see. Once again, we all apologize for the technical difficulties, but excitingly, tonight we have breath coach expert, special guest David Pemberton, who is also an expert on oxygen advantages and the Buteyko breathing method. David, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks, my dad. Nadia, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Excellent.
Mate, great to have you here. Um, just to inform some of the viewers that Dave and um, I run my own footprints retreats, which I have Nadia help me um, with the footprints retreat, and we've been working very hard on it. And David is one of the practitioners and guest people that talks about the benefits of nasal breathing. And tonight is going to be just about all that and more. So while we're here, we won't waste any more time and we'll jump right into the questions. First of all, Dave has a wealth of experience in the Buteyko breathing method, as I said, and he's been working in the industry. Um, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself and what he does. And at the end of this session, if any of you want to contact Dave, we will share that information with you also. So just before we start, over to you, Dave, and tell them a little bit about what you do, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Yeah, g'day everybody. I'm Dave, the breathing coach. So why the breathing coach? It's an interesting story. We breathe. We breathe upwards of 25,000 times a day, but we don't have enough input or enough education around breathing. And how I got into breath work or breathing or Buteyko breathing or the oxygen advantage was I just attended a workshop probably 3.5 years ago now, and came away with a profound awakening, a profound experience that the control of the breath and the techniques that we went to is absolutely mind changing. And I dived down that rabbit hole of going into holotropic breathing, breakthrough breath work, and all of that. And I became qualified in that. But I'm a long time sports person or wannabe sports person, and I was encouraged as a youngster to play as much sport as I could, but never reached the great heights. And probably now I look back on it, I wasn't breathing correctly. So I went down the path of oxygen advantage, which is sport specific breath work or breathing techniques to enhance optimization of oxygen into our working cells to aid in recovery and working better through our aerobic and anaerobic systems. Long time sufferer of asthma as well. So asthma since the age of 6 to 7, discovered the Buteyko breathing method, um, which when used and used correctly and over a period of time and as little as 12 weeks, and I don't like using the word cure too lightly, but I've cured myself of asthma after having it for close to 47, 48 years. Along with that, had anxiety, the depression, all that stuff that comes along with not knowing how I was going to breathe. And when I was breathing, I was over breathing, and the panic sets in, and having puffers and relying on puffers the whole time. So there was something to this breathing. So I quit my
Right.
job, and I went full time into now teaching people how to breathe and how to live
So this is
optimally
what I was just.
with the breath.
This is what I was just. This is what I was just going to ask you with the first question, and that was, what got you into becoming a breath coach? And you've answered most of that. And how long have you been doing this um, breath
Yeah,
coaching that you do?
the breath coaching absolutely is 2 years ago that I became an oxygen advantage coach. Before that, I did a breathless certification. That was the first one I did, and that was basically breathless was taking the best bits of all breath work around the world, putting it together into a package, and delivering it. So I became an instructor from them. And then into Oxygen Advantage, and then within the last year, the Buteyko breathing method, because it had that profound impact on my life with curing the asthma, which now has now gone across into reducing symptoms of other autoimmune diseases. So yeah, all up, probably
That's
two and
that's
a half.
amazing. That's
Uh,
amazing, Dave. I know some of the work that I've been doing with you and some of the stuff that you've taught me, and like um if you don't mind me butting in and sharing, you've taught me to use the tape around my mouth when I sleep at night, and that has helped me so much in order to teach me to breathe through my nasals, and I'm able to get so much better quality sleep. I'm just going to ask another question, and I'll pass it over to Nadia because I know she wants to ask you. She had another question to ask you, but can you give a little history on the background of Buteyko breathing and its method?
Yeah, well, Buteyko was let's call it invented, founded by Dr. Konstantin Buteyko, a physician who developed the technique in the 1950s. Um, Basically, what he discovered, he was as a military medic during World War II, and then he pursued further medical studies after that. But just it was interesting that one at night he was just observing the breathing techniques of his patients with various respiratory conditions, including asthma, bronchitis, and hypertension. And he noticed that most of those patients exhibited dysfunctional breathing patterns. Basically, they were rapid, shallow breathing with chronic hyperventilation. Now, hyperventilation means either fast breathing or taking in too much volume of air. So it's over ventilation or over breathing. Um, and then, based on his research and his clinical experiences, he's hypothesized that many chronic diseases, particularly those related to the respiratory and cardiovascular systems, were linked to excessive breathing. No brainer. So, what he went down was about reducing the amount of volume of air, reducing the amount of breaths that he took, and the volume of air that came in, and reducing basically they're all linked to excessive or reducing CO2 levels in the body. So he developed a series of protocols, which today we know as the Buteyko breathing method. The other interesting thing about Buteyko, the first lot of trials were actually done here in Brisbane, in the Mater Hospital back in the 90s. And there's currently over 20 research papers current with the Buteyko breathing method and the reduction of asthmatic symptoms and upper respiratory dysfunction with overwhelming, beautiful, successful stories. There's a
Amazing.
BBC video that we can watch was back from the 80s and 90s that yeah shows all that, and it's yeah, so we're just getting a healthier balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide now in the body and better gas exchange by breathing less. But the
That's amazing,
foundation
and it's
of Buteyko is nasal breathing.
yes. Like, look, it's incredible. Every time I hear you speak, and every time we've been doing work together, I'm always learning more and more. And I know it's provided so much more quality in my life with my training, with my sleep, and obviously, in everything I do. Nadia, did you want to ask a question?
I do. And David's doing a really good job with answering my questions before I ask them as well. But it's absolutely amazing, especially that you've mentioned asthma with the Australian climate as well. There's a lot of people that are coming down with a lot of issues, especially through their respiratory system and breathing in a lot more than what they really need to. So I guess, what do you find is the most common problem that people are coming to you with?
I've seen lots of different people that have come through my premises here. I love helping people with asthma only because I've helped myself with asthma, lifelong sufferer of asthma. Um, Actually empowering people to know that they've got control over their breath by simple breathing techniques to reduce their asthmatic symptoms, but then in turn reduce their anxiety and all the things that are associated with an asthma or an asthma attack. But I've helped people with COPD, with anxiety, with ADD, ADHD, a whole host of different things. The one thing that most of all these people have in common is a dysfunctional breathing pattern. More than likely, or most of them, are mouth breathers. or they're just breathing too much. It's as simple as that. Now, not all mouth breathing is bad because we need to do it. I'm doing it right now because I'm talking to you and I have to breathe through my mouth. It's when we're not thinking about breathing is that we should be breathing through our nose and our nose only.
Yeah, right. And what's the difference between nasal breathing and mouth breathing? I know you just mentioned that you're talking and obviously you have to breathe through your mouth as you're doing it, but like I've never actually thought about like stepping back and paying attention of where my breath is coming from.
Yeah, well, sadly, we've never been taught how to breathe. We just do it. It's part of the autonomic nervous system, but it's one of the two things that we can actually override. We can close our eyes anytime, but we also can control our breath. Um, the mouth serves no purpose in breathing whatsoever. And in fact, I'm going to have a little disclaimer here. If anybody can find in any medical literature that breathing is listed as a function of the mouth, they can send it through to me. That would be awesome because I haven't found it yet that breathing is listed as a function of the mouth. It's not. Two major functions of the mouth are eating and speaking. But we breathe. If we don't breathe within 2 minutes, we're dead. So if it was very important to breathe through the mouth, it would be number one, but it's not. So the nose, it filters the airborne particulates. It humidifies and warms the inhaled air. It increases airflow to arteries and veins, and it actually increases our oxygen uptake and circulation. The mouth does none of that. The mouth is just a big hole that lets air in and lets air out. It doesn't filter the air, it doesn't humidify the air, which is why there's a lot of upper respiratory dysfunction or inflammation because we've got unfiltered cold air hitting the back of our throats. For an asthmatic, that's not good because it'll inflame those airways even more. So, slowing down the breath and breathing through the nose does all that beautiful thing to our oxygen
Is
so
it
it gets
true,
in
Dave?
deep into the.
Is it true, Dave? I remember you were saying to me in one of the workshops that we did that through nasal breathing, one is able to get 30% more oxygen from nasal breathing than breathing in through their mouth, and quality breathing, quality air.
Yeah, 30% maybe a little bit more, but I've read up to 22% oxygen uptake. Yeah, better gas exchange through the bottom of the lungs because we're actually engaging the diaphragm, which is pulling that air right down in through our nasal passage. Whereas we breathe through our mouth, it's more upper chest breathing. So we're not actually getting that air right down deep into the alveoli where that better gas exchange happens then into our circulatory system. So yeah, upwards of and somewhere between 18 to 22% actually better oxygen delivery into our bloodstream than into our diffusion into our working muscles. So absolutely, nasal breathing all the way to go, even during low to mid intensity exercise.
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane how just breathing through your nose can change your life.
Dave, yeah, since I've started nasal breathing and wearing that tape around my mouth, I know that, as I explained, I've felt like the benefits and just getting better quality sleep and just even when I'm exercising or just even during the day, even sitting down and that, I'm just constantly nasal breathing as opposed to mouth breathing. But, for people who suffer from some sleep deprivation, as we all know, they may have sleep apnea, or sleep apnea is a huge problem in the population. Um, and how can nasal breathing help in? How can you explain how nasal breathing can actually help
Yeah,
suffering from some form of sleep apnea or sleep deprivation?
yeah, what 100%. Sleep apnea just means a breath hold. So when we have an apnea episode, we basically our bodies just stops breathing. So it's actually breath holding. So and most people that snore have some type of apnea during the nighttime. And the snoring is a lot of different things out there, but basically, if you're a mouth snorer, there's too much volume of air coming into your mouth, which, once again, as I mentioned before, is starting to inflame the mouth. The tongue is also not positioned where it should be. Now, if everybody out there says the letter N, if you say that letter N and where your tongue ends after the letter N is where the tongue should be resting when you are nasal breathing. Now, the tongue needs to be strengthened to have that position the whole time. If you're a mouth breather and snoring, the tongue is often, or it can, fall back into the throat or fall back, reducing the amount of airway volume, therefore going into an apnea. So how do we do that? Well, we breathe through the nose, and what the nose does, because it's got smaller airways, it actually regulates the temperature or the volume of air coming in, providing now correct air pressure from the top of here all the way down to our lungs. Because what happens down the bottom of our airway also happens at the top of our airway. So a CPAP machine, continuous pressure, positive airway pressure, is the gold standard for apnea. And what that does is it just provides the constant air pressure to keep our airways open. But regulating through the nasal breathing would do the same thing. So this is why using mouth tape, and in particular the tape that goes around the outside of the mouth along with your CPAP machine, will help reduce and retrain the body how to breathe through the nose. So eventually, we might not have to use that CPAP machine. So I'm not encouraging anybody to give up their CPAP machines or any of their medication or anything like that. All I'm saying is if we can get onto nasal breathing sooner rather than later, I'm sure that most of those symptoms that you have will start to dissipate over time, including
I'm,
better
I'm,
sleep.
I'm first to put my hand up that I was given a sleep out machine, and since doing nasal breathing, I never used it. I only used it probably for about 3 months. I felt uncomfortable using it, and I used the tape, and the tape has helped me. And can't even see myself going back to mouth breathing. It's just an incredible change that I've made. But it's funny how you say that. In your experiences, Dave, how does nasal breathing reduce the inflammation in our body? I know you tapped into it a little earlier on when we were speaking and that, and you're almost answering the question before even Nadia and I asked. But how does nasal breathing reduce the inflammation in our body, especially during sleep? And that I think you tapped a little bit on it a second ago, but can you just explain a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. The nasal passage, as I said, is our natural filtration system. It traps any airborne particulates and pathogens before they enter into our respiratory system. This helps prevent the activation of the immune system, and it will reduce the likelihood of any inflammation because then our immune system is working how it should be, particularly through the airways and lungs. I mean, you think what I was saying before, if we breathe in too much volume of air, cold, unfiltered air with airborne particulates, the first line of defense is our tonsils and our mouth, and they want to inflame because they don't want that airborne particulates to get down into our lungs. If it gets down there, then we've got inflammation. The other beautiful thing about breathing through the nose is it is the catalyst for the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and restore or rest and digest. So by
Yes.
nasal breathing more often than not, we're stressing less. And stress is inflammation. So by humidifying the air, all that type of thing through the nose will lead to reducing that risk of inflammation. The other beautiful thing that's in the nose is nitric oxide. There's nitric oxide production, and I get a bit nerd out on this one. It's formed in the sinuses in the nasal passages, and what NO does, or nitric oxide, it's a molecule with a potent anti-inflammatory properties. Now, you are not getting that nitric oxide production as much if you breathe through the nose as opposed to the mouth as opposed to breathing through the nose. So nitric oxide helps dilate the blood vessels, it increases the blood flow, and it also improves oxygen delivery to the tissues. So it's a no-brainer, reducing stress, increase of nitric oxide production, has that also has antimicrobial effects. It reduces infections and reduces the inflammation in our respiratory system in particular. Um, Reducing our breath flow or our breath as well will tend to regulate our carbon dioxide levels a bit more. Carbon dioxide is also a vasodilator, so it opens things up and it helps regulate our pH in our blood. So the less stress we are under, the less inflammation that is likely to happen. Okay, so
What a
basically that's in a nutshell with going down, diving too deep or anything like that. But it is important for maintaining the acid-base balance and regulating immune responses. And nitric oxide and CO2 are one of those two molecules that we've been gifted with that our body produces, that if we offload too much of that by over breathing, too much CO2 is now coming out, our regulation
Inflammation.
levels go up. There's a whole host of different physiological adaptations that happen, which are not beneficial with keeping inflammation under check.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Nadia, did you have any other questions for Dave?
I do. Like, I'm actually writing notes as we go as well, because a lot of
Yeah,
my clients come to me and, like, in the world of stress management, how they can reduce, what they're doing, and I just did, because my name starts with N, and I just put my tongue in the place that N finishes with, and I've just realized that I'm probably not going to sleep tonight because I'll be thinking about my N. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It makes so much more sense. And I guess, do you have any stories? Like, what's your favorite story about working with somebody and being able to help them with just nasal breathing as opposed to breathing through the mouth?
Yeah, I've been working with this a lady in particular who's in her mid 60s. Came to me with chronic asthma symptoms, like relying on Winter mentioned all the time, so puffers, steroids, the whole thing. And we went for a good 6 week period, and with the mouth tape and all the rest, her sleep improved, her energy increased, her just attention and her presence was there. And then she went overseas for about 5 or 6 weeks. I only caught up with her last week. She came back and she said, Dave, I got an asthma I was away. Yeah, you know what? I didn't need my puffers. You put on the thing that she'd had. Just because you don't have asthma, not going to get asthma, you can get asthma because the situations are. The fact came up to me that said, Dave, I remembered all our training. I went back to, I reduced my panic. I did my little breath holds. I increased the nitric oxide production in my nose, and I got rid of those asthma symptoms all. And she was so ecstatic that she now doesn't need to rely on those puffers or steroids to live her life. And that's what she happened overseas, maybe in a stressful moment, maybe she was us, not 100% sure. But yeah, she was able to control them. The idea is not being able to. So for me, that's when I hear stories like that, um, it actually blows my mind. One of those little stories. Been working with a 13-year-old boy who's ADHD, and working with him for 4 to 6 weeks. His mother rang me and said he'd slept through for the first time since he was born. So little things like that,
incredible.
just simplifying and teaching people how to breathe can have a massive impact on their quality of life. And that's why I do what I do. It's just to have that impact through the power of the breath. And it's so simplistic in its nature, just getting people to breathe through their nose. I mean, there are exercises along the way and tongue strengthening exercises and a whole host of other different stuff that we do. But the end result is to retrain the body to breathe through the nose.
Yeah.
Loving the exercises, Dave. They're so good. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking about
Do them
kids,
daily.
yes. Speaking about kids, as you know, I've attended a lot of your workshops, and when you talk about nasal breathing, you refer to the Buteyko method. And we've also discussed in person, outside in our own time, about the benefits of nasal breathing for kids and how it can prevent them from getting braces. And this was a topic that I really took home and looked into, and because my daughter got braces like a couple of months ago, and she's getting braces now, and she's in that process. Could you explain a little bit about that? Maybe there's some parents out there that would love to learn or know a little bit about what you shared with me on that particular subject.
Yeah, absolutely. On my website, I've got a letter to all parents out there to really have a look at their child and their children, how they're breathing from the age of 3 or 4. See what happens when a child starts to mouth breathe early on, and their jaw starts to fall down or it remains open the whole time. What happens is their cranial facial features actually start to come down. So we're ending up with a lot of people that have got long, elongated faces and they're quite skinny. The problem with that is that we've got high palates, overcrowding of teeth. We've got a jaw that recedes backwards, and that all compromises the airway health and the airway health and the formation of future airway health. The maxilla, which is the top jaw, if that is not expanding properly, this is where we get that high palate and the overcrowding of teeth. 1 in 2 children, I believe, are getting some type of dental expander to widen their maxilla. Now, I mentioned before the correct tongue placement, saying that letter N, which sits up behind the teeth at the palate, and that soft palate there, that actually now is providing scaffolding for the growth of the maxilla. So then the natural way their face is now becoming a little bit squarer because the tongue is up there pushing and supporting. And now the tongue also brings that bottom jaw forward rather
Yes, it
than
does.
back. So this is what a lot of interventions today, and there are some beautiful myofascial dentists and holistic dentists out there at the moment coming on board with airway health and providing mouth guards and splints. So not too invasive, but just bringing that jaw forward. But we also need to be able to strengthen that tongue so we can stay at the top of the mouth to continue to provide that scaffolding. There's another thought going along out there too with healthy faces and what have you, is actually delaying putting braces on until the face stops growing. Because if you actually stop the maxilla growing because we're getting the superficial, nice straight teeth, that can compromise also. I'm not going to say it will for everybody, but that may also stifle the growth of the maxilla because we've got the braces on. So then they may need some expanders after that as well. Not having had braces myself, but I've had teeth pulled. I mean, I've got the classic face of a mouth breather because I mouth breathe for 50 odd years of my life. So if I went side on, you would see my jaws receded a little bit back. I've got a longer face. I've had teeth pulled out, and I'm missing teeth, the whole rest of it. But is my jaw growing back? I'd like to hope that it is a little bit, and I'm pushing it out. But yeah, detrimental mouth breathing in children. We need to get onto that as soon as possible. There's
That's
a passage out
interesting.
of the
Sorry, keep going, Dave.
there's a passage out of the book Breath by a science journalist called James Nestor, where he mentions that back in the ancients, in the tribal communities, there was women's whole sole responsibility was to go around at night time and closing the little ones' mouths because they knew the importance of nasal breathing for children so they'd have those nice square jaws. And when we've dug up ancient skulls, you'd always notice that they've got a nice square with perfectly aligned teeth. We've gone away from that now over generations. I think it takes about 4 generations for that to come to play. And we're at that stage now, observing through shopping centers and what have you, a lot of the kids have got that elongated face and that skinny face. And I can guarantee you, I would say most of them would be mouth breathing and
Yeah, braces.
unaware
Yeah.
that that's been detrimental to their facial features and their growth. So, yes, how a child breathes when they're younger will have a direct influence on the way they look in the future.
That directs us to question
So, I'm
number
all
9. Nadia,
about
would you like to ask this
shutting
one?
kids' mouths.
Yeah, well, it sort of ties in with something I was just thinking about as well. So, when I was younger, I used to grind my teeth like that, and it was easier just to put like a mouth guard in while I was sleeping, and that's what actually promotes me to nasal breathe. But I never even thought about it that way. But same with kids that suck their thumbs as well. So they're
Yes.
also bringing,
Yep.
the back of their jawline back into their, yeah. So it's actually quite amazing. And what are your thoughts about teaching this stuff like nasal breathing all together in schools and early childhood programs?
If absolutely 100% would be behind that. Absolutely. I've sent letters out to schools, all the rest of it. There's a bit of a slow uptake. We need to educate the parents first. We can go into schools all day long, but if the parents aren't on board with educating, with them being educated and the outlook for their children, And I always encourage every parent just to go and search up on whatever search engine they want to use, mouth breathing in children, and have a look. It is very, very confronting what can actually happen if your child's a mouth breather. So getting through to P&Cs, getting through to health and wellness officers within schools to have workshops for parents to educate their children, absolutely. And once that's done, then we can roll out programs through schools. One, if we can reduce children's breathing and get them more settled, they're going to learn better. They're actually going to be able to sit and focus and concentrate, which is the other thing that the breath does. More oxygen to the brain, but we're also calmer. So we're better conditions for learning. And we've all been in those classrooms, even back in my day, that we've always had those children that have been disruptive. Were that because of over breathing? And they just had too much, their prefrontal cortex was in hyperarousal mode because they were over-regulated with their breathing, which is now the links to ADD and ADHD with over-breathing. Just like overeating causes disease, over-breathing now has been linked to some of these diseases as well. So I'm all for schools putting something in. Even year 12 students, one of the most important their school years, knowing how to study correctly and focusing and concentrating by regulating their breath. And it's such a simple tool because it's accessible 24/7. They don't have to burn the candle all night, go for their Red Bulls, coffees, or what have you. They've got their tool at their own beckoning 24/7. And knowing how to regulate it through workshops in schools, a visit once a week, just educating everybody, I would say the world would be a much better place for this next generation coming through, being in control of their breath and then therefore their emotions.
Yeah,
Sure, that's Dave. You know what's amazing, like, and I'm sure you'd agree. We've spoken a little bit about this before. So many top level athletes today in all diverse sports, whether it be rugby league, tennis, boxing, whatever sport, and at any level, elite, don't know how to breathe properly. They're not nasal breathing, they are mouth breathing. And have you had any experiences? I know you've spoken about some people you don't have to mention names, and that you've worked with before, that you can share with us and the people out there that
Yeah, absolutely. Sports people are always looking for the edge, right, over their competition to improve by that point zero 0.01 of a second, or just to get over the competitor over their opposition. There was a research paper done, I think it was late 2000 or 2019, 2020, somewhere around there, where they did some testing on 1,953 athletes ranging from let's call it weekend warrior to semi-pro up to professional. And what it came back was that 92% of them had dysfunctional breathing patterns. Now, these are people that are trying to be the best in their sport. Mind you, most of it was biomechanical, and biomechanical is with the diaphragm. So they were basically chest breathing. They weren't getting that oxygen optimization in. So out of that 1,953 athletes at the top professional level, if they're looking for a little game changer or that extra 0.5%, 1% to elevate them to the next level, they need to be looking at their breathing. So throughout, you've got your top soccer players, UFC, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, tennis players. They're all now starting to incorporate breathing techniques such as the oxygen advantage into their weekly routines and training protocols. It's not in replace of what they're currently doing with their coaches. It's complementary. Better recovery, better oxygen usage, better game time, less risk of injury because there's less stress on the body doing these exercises. It's a no-brainer. It's slowly starting to take off here in Australia. There are a few NRL teams that are looking into some breathing practices. Same with English rugby. There's quite a lot through Europe that are incorporating these practices. We will get there out here. That is a mission of mine, just to get it to educate as many people about breathing in that sports realm. through gyms, through whatever. So, um, yeah, it's changed my life. I'm 56 years young, and it's definitely changed my life. And I know it can change everybody's out there too, just by bringing a little bit more awareness to the power of the breath.
I guess that's what it really comes down, because what I'm noticing, Dave, is with all this education, and then day by day, before you know it, not only are you breathing slower, like, I mean, you get me to box breathe and stuff like that, and doing some certain exercise like breath holds and walking up and down the room, those particular exercises that I do 10 times a day, and just becoming so much more comfortable with that. And it's so much more comfortable, like even just before I go to bed and I do these breath box breathing exercise that I do. And I was doing stuff like that before I met you, but the particular ones that you gave me was so much more beneficial. I'm able to get sleep a lot better, and I'm able to control my breathing even when I'm tired, even when I'm working out. I'm able to focus more. My head is clearer. I'm able to be more creative in what I'm doing. And I can really resonate in what you were saying about sportsmen who are able to get more oxygenated air, or students sitting for an exam that are able to sit for the exam and have better results simply by just having better energy and clearer, more focused, and not having that fog in their brain, you know?
100%, mate. For me, it's a no-brainer. I have a very gifted 13-year-old who is a top performer in dance and various dancing styles. She mouth tapes every night for recovery, because she goes to a performing arts school. She's probably dancing and on her feet for 8 of those 10 hours days. She needs to have recovery, so she eats good food, she drinks good water, and she sleeps well. No tossing and turning, no getting up to go to the toilet during the night. Her body is actually going into rest and restore because of the nasal breathing at night. Her body's optimizing the oxygen usage to repair her cells, and she dances every day, all day. And she wakes up every morning ready to go again.
You know what I feel fascinating, and what's been so motivating for myself is like the nasal breathing, the ability to put yourself in the rest and digest mode. Like you talk about the parasympathetic nerve and the synthetic nerve, and the ability to just unwind. And the more you do it, you know, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you become, and the more the 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 inbuilt awareness that is developed through doing this. It's not something that comes overnight. Like you said, I've been taping my mouth now for, I think we're going on to about 60 days now that I've been taping my mouth. And some nights I don't tape my mouth, but most nights I do. And when I don't tape my mouth, I find myself really keeping that consistency. So that's been
Yeah.
amazing. Nadia, do you have any a final question for Dave? Maybe how do people get in contact with him or something like that?
Yeah, well, I really want to know more about this mouth taping. I would think that it's a punishment for my ADHD stepson. So I'm only joking, but I'd love to know more about that. And I guess the other last final question is, how does people find out about you, and how do they find out more about how they can get your help?
Yeah, let's go first with mouth taping. I've tried a lot of different mouth tapes, and I have aligned myself with a company called Myotape, which the tape actually is like kinesio tape. It just goes around the outside of the lip, so it's quite stretchy, and it just gently pushes the lips together. So you can still talk though, you can still communicate, or you can still have a drink of water. What it also allows you to do, because it's not sealing the whole lips, that's it there.
That's it there,
If you
Maya
need to
tape.
cough, yep, that's exactly it. If you still need to cough, you can still cough because your mouth can open, but then it goes back again. There's also a phenomenon called mouth puffing, which is little puffs like that, which if you completely seal the lips, it doesn't allow for that to happen, which could be detrimental to people who have mouth snoring or upper airway dysfunction. The other thing with TMJ as well, it actually increases this with the mouth tape all over. It actually increases a bit more tension through your jaw. So having a like my Maya tape, or one that goes across, or a little lip seal just here, which you can still breathe out through the sides of your mouth, is the best type of mouth. I've been mouth taping for 2.5 years. Um, my body just loves it. I go to sleep immediately. I do my breathe light, breathe right before I go to sleep. listen to put my sleep music on. I'm out. I'm waking up at 4:30, head off to the gym, do what I do. Where do people find me? I do have a website called thebreathingcoach.net.au. I'm also on Instagram as the full stop breathing coach, and also have a Facebook page too, the breathing coach. So email the breathing coach at proton.me. That's where you can find me. Yeah, I'm willing and ready to have a chat to anybody that wants to change their life and their health. Um, and I believe that we've talked so much about nutrition, sleep, exercise, and water, which is our 4 pillars of health. Fifth one should be the breath. So those 5 pillars of health should be equally as important. The breath maybe should be the most important because we can only last 2, 3 minutes without our breath. Whereas
And
nutrition
also,
with a bit of water, we can last a little bit longer.
it also equals our contributes to our ability to get quality sleep. And I guess what people don't realize is that not getting quality sleep is such a detrimental of the fact that there are a lot of diseases and a lot of ongoing problems that we have in the population today. And that's what I love about what you share and about what you do. And well, this has been an amazing session. I really enjoyed listening to it. I'm sure everybody listening, Nadia, did you get anything out of that?
I got a
I
lot out of it. Wow. And
so
I mean, I suffer from TMJ and I've just had a facial reconstruction for my jaw. So all of this stuff has really, hit home for me. My dad has a CPAP machine, so I'm going to get him some of that tape. Definitely, yeah.
So, yeah, and you know what? People only know what they know. And I was one of those mouth breathers for 50 odd years. And it wasn't until, I mean, I'm the skeptic at best at times. So for me, trying it and it working and going, holy cow, there is something to this breathing. But as I said before, we've never been taught how to breathe correctly. And all the years I've been hospitalized for asthma, and all the years I've been going to medical professionals, all the rest of it, sadly, they just do not get taught about the benefits of nasal breathing. They get taught about the respiratory system. And this is nothing against our medical, but they can do great jobs, and they're coming from a place of, goodness. But the breath is one of the most important things that we've got, and we've got use of it 24/7. We've just got to know how to use it in various situations. And I always kind of finish off with, yes, we can do holotropic breathing. We can do all that conscious connection breathing. We can go to yoga. We can go to Pilates, and that's all good for that hour or so. But how are you breathing when you're not thinking about breathing? That is the most important question. So when we're distracted, when we're in front of the television, when we're just not even thinking about breathing, we should always, in every case, be nasal breathing, not mouth breathing.
it's the great thing about the tape breathing, I believe, that overnight, the 8 hours that you sleep, however long it is, 7, 8 hours, 9 hours, that it gets you in a state. It's almost like when you wake up, you just over time, you just do it effortlessly. It just comes like second nature. And that's what I love about what you've shared with me, Dave. This has been an amazing session, and I've gotten a lot of out of it, like I always do. And like I said, if I could just ask Nadia to share a little bit about our upcoming retreat that we have running and that you are involved with, and that we're going to be sharing with others tonight.
Yes. How exciting that we're going to be doing this as well. So we do have NAPAD running the next Footprints retreat on the 17th, 18th and 19th of July. And we have David coming along and helping with some breath work at that event as well. So looking forward to having this collaboration again. Feedback that we've had just recently from the last one was that everything was set out really nicely, and they actually came into it thinking, just another health retreat. but it wasn't. It was a good balance of everything. They really appreciate knowing now that they were breathing wrong, and their activities were just superb. So I'm hoping to get up there into Bondi myself. I'm from Adelaide, so otherwise known as the retirement village. So I'm looking forward to getting up to Bondi and yeah, doing some breath work and some hopefully a little bit of boxing and some nutrition, yoga and that sort of stuff up there too. So
Yes, we had an amazing event and we're looking forward to July. As Nadia said, there's so much we're going to be doing. We're going to have a nutritionist there. We're going to be having human movement classes, yoga. Participants will get a massage. We'll be served an array of delicious food from um, Up South Cafe, Latino restaurant, having acai bowls, detoxing smoothies, even having ice baths. And the great thing about the last event that we ran it with a corporate group, and we did so many team building activities, and they just loved it. But Dave, thank you for joining us tonight. Really enjoy your company and listen to what you have to share. And Nadia, couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. And for everybody who wants to learn more about our upcoming retreat, shoot us a message. Either contact us at our email at ynvhealthandwellness@hotmail.com, or feel free to call me on 0402 622 662. Don't forget, next week I'll be talking to Dr. Mark Levi. Mark Levi is a specialist and a world-renowned expert on sleep deprivation. He's actually a dentist, but he his passion has been for a long time now on sleep deprivation, and it's one of the common problems in the population. And I know Dave knows a lot about this, and Nadia knows a lot about this, but Dave, and Mark Levy is an expert on it, and I just can't wait to sit down with him and have a chat to him next week. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and thanks again, Dave and Nadia, and we'll all see you guys next Tuesday night.
great to have
Thanks,
you.
guys.
See you
Thank you very
soon.
much.
Yeah.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye bye.